Hi everyone, we are Team WaterlooWave. I'm Jerome and I'll be presenting along with Sarah and John. So let's begin with the motivation and background for our FYDP. 1 year into the COVID-19 pandemic, close to half of the world's students are still affected by partial or full school closures. Globally, over 1.2 billion children are out of the classroom. Education has changed dramatically, with the distinctive rise of e-learning, whereby teaching is now undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. Research suggests that online learning has been shown to increase retention of information and takes less time, meaning the changes the pandemic have caused might be here to stay. Social distancing, also called physical distancing, means keeping a safe space between yourself and other people who are not from your household. Limiting close face-to-face contact with others is known to be the best way to reduce the spread of COVID-19. In order to flatten the curve, governments have imposed legal gathering limits for organized public events and social gatherings. Here in Ontario, we have a color-coded system that specifies the limit on social gatherings, where green means there can be a maximum of 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. Red meaning there can be a maximum of 5 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. And gray, where social gatherings are not allowed. Since the pandemic started, the ways people are able to safely connect with one another have become limited. Loneliness during the COVID-19 pandemic has become a major concern as more and more people are hiding in their homes in isolation. With physical distancing and the disruption of academic terms, students are also facing a number of challenges, including adjusting to new routines and seeking outlets to boost physical and mental wellness. First year students will not get to experience the traditional orientation week, which is vital in setting the tone for how they will feel about their school and establishes whether they'll start the academic year discouraged or with positivity. Our solution, WaterlooWave, is an app that aims to help alleviate the loneliness some students might face during quarantine. The goal is to create a sense of connectedness during a time where social interaction is limited, as it plays an essential role to the emotional well-being and academic success of students. We've created a mobile platform that allows students to connect with other students residing in the same region for small activities. Students will have the ability to create their own activities, as well as join activities created by other students within their city. Types of activities can range from virtual activities, such as gaming, to outdoor and in-person ones, such as tennis, photography, biking, and others. Upon joining an activity, the student is placed in a group chat where they can further interact with other group members. The goal of our project is to provide students with a community-centered tool for creating activities. One of the primary driving factors in developing this app was aiding students maintain some amount of social interaction with their peers while adhering to the social distancing guidelines put in place to slow down the spread of COVID-19 in the past year. In this regard, we believe our application is in a way a trade-off between two subcategories of healthcare: improving mental health and socialization versus risk of catching the virus. Our app aims to address some of the loneliness and isolation that many people are feeling as a result of quarantine. But even small gatherings adhering to the guidelines are likely higher risk than just staying home alone. We do not see our application as having a trade-off in any other categories. The intended user base of our application is all Waterloo students, with perhaps an emphasis on first-year students. The main advantage of this design over major alternatives, such as social media sites like Instagram and Facebook, is that it allows Waterloo students to connect more easily in an organized way, based on location, year, faculty, and our program. The app also encourages students to interact in a safer and more personal manner, as the activities are implemented in small groups. Now I will pass it to John for the app demo.
Thanks, Jerome. So the first thing I want to do is just provide a brief overview of all of the main screens of our app. When a user first logs in, they will be presented with the home screen that you can see now. This is where any upcoming activities nearby the user will appear. The next screen we have is the calendar screen. This allows users to see both recently completed as well as upcoming activities that they were enrolled in. The next screen is pretty self-explanatory. It's the new activity screen, which allows users to create new activities which other users can then enroll in. The messaging screen allows users to send group messages or direct messages, and group chats will be created for each activity. The final screen we have is the profile tab, where the user can provide a pretty minimal profile to present to other users, and as well as providing the ability to update their profile and settings. Now that we have an overview of the app, let's explore the main user scenarios. The first is a user who wants to create an activity and hopefully find some nearby people who share that interest and will enroll in their activity. So to create an activity, we're just going to navigate to the new activity screen, and we're going to fill in the title, time, number of people. We're going to pick a location. In this case, maybe we want to play tennis at Palmer Park. We're going to confirm that location. We enter some details, and we're going to hit post. So now anyone whose range is set so that Palmer Park would, be in range of them will see this activity. If we're the owner, we can actually come in and edit the activity because we saw a typo. And so we're going to fix that typo. We're going to update the activity. And now anyone will see the updated activity. We can also delete it. I'm not going to show you that just because I want to show you that a message group is automatically created for each activity. So if I want to say, hey guys, looking forward to seeing you. Now anyone who joins the group and comes to the conversation will be able to see that message from us. So now let's look at a user who is using our app for the first time and wants to join some activities and get involved. If we check their messaging tab, they're not in any groups yet, so they don't have any group messages. I just quickly sent a message to this person and sent one back earlier, so that's there. So if we head back to the home screen, we see all the activities that have been created in our area. Maybe this user is interested in tennis, so they see the tennis card and they're going to click on that. They notice it's in Waterloo, and that's a little bit far for us, so we're going to change our radius down to something like 20 kilometers. And now only the tennis game we created earlier is showing up. So if we click on that card, we can enroll in it. So it has 1 out of 5 people now. We're enrolled. If we check the messaging tab, we're automatically added to the group. We can join it. We can see the message. We can reply. Thanks. Looking forward to it. Otherwise, we could come to the direct messages. If we participated in a past activity with someone we enjoyed, we can try and check out their profile. So here they've filled out, like I said before, it's pretty minimal, but they've filled out their whole profile. Here he's only filled out his academic information, if you will. And then this person also has kind of filled out the whole profile, as minimal as it is. Other than that, a user can edit their profile, so they can change their display picture, update their name, update their program, that sort of stuff, and then as simple as update. And that's sort of the user flow. Hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea how the app works, and next we're going to go through the tech stack quickly. The front end of our application accounted for a large majority of the total work required for building our application. In order to target both Android and iOS, our team leveraged Expo, which in their words is a platform for building React applications. Most of you probably are familiar with React. It's a popular library for building UIs. For us, starting with very little experience building mobile applications, Expo was actually very, very helpful at the start, particularly. As one might imagine, it being intended for React, it also supported React Native, which is how we were able to target both platforms. So Expo, as I mentioned, was a great tool for us. It made setting up the project, developing code quickly, and running that code on a simulator or an actual device on either platform a lot easier than it would otherwise be. Expo did also, once we got further into the project, sort of start to introduce more problems. One of the big ones was that certain React Native libraries don't actually work with Expo. One of the big ones was a React Native Firebase package. We were able to still use the Web SDK, but its performance leaves a lot to be desired, particularly on Android devices. One final part worth mentioning is Redux, a JavaScript library for managing application state. It's a pretty popular library and is very commonly used in React applications. Together with a Firebase binding library, we were able to ensure that our application state is up to date and consistent across all the different views. The backend of our application is a bit simpler. The core of our application's backend is a CRUD service. So typically you might have a web server with Node.js or Express, contacting a local database, and then serving that content to the users. This would mean setting up authentication, setting up endpoints, and is generally a pretty involved process. Instead of doing this all ourselves, we were able to leverage Firebase, which provides a plethora of solutions, but the three main ones that we were leveraging are the authentication, the Firestore, and Google Storage. Firestore in particular, which is the cloud-based NoSQL database, allowed us to focus almost entirely on the front end and worry about any potential back-end changes if or when the need ever arose. A NoSQL database made a lot of sense for us. Not only does it reduce development time when data structures change, which can be fairly often, especially early, but some data like user metrics and feedback can benefit from the flexibility of not having to match a certain table's format in a relational database. There was also times where it was a bit of a downside. For instance, the activities and the users enrolled in them and the user who created them are intrinsically related, and so having a relational database might have been nice for those queries. Especially as we got further into the project, Firestore started to have more and more limitations. It limits the complexity of queries that can be performed, so in a lot of cases our solution for now was to simply perform a larger query and then filter the data ourselves, which obviously is not ideal.
Thanks, John. Now we'll talk about the development process of our project. Originally, Jerome and I were in a different group and then joined this project in July of 2020 during our 4A semester. The project was also being worked on by 4 first and second year co-op students until the end of summer 2020. John then joined the group in the fall, but as we were on co-op, we didn't have much time to work on the application. The timeline of our project is as shown. Most of the planning and designing happened last summer, as well as the beginning of development. And the rest of the development and testing completed this semester, which is 4B, and we are trying to get to the point of releasing our app. This roadmap was created last summer, our 4A semester, and it includes all of the features we hope to implement in our app. On the right, we have included check marks to show in what stage each feature is currently in, and as you can see, most features are completed, and the yellow on the roadmap indicates the progress that was made this semester. For version control, we used GitHub, and for project management, we used a tool called Trello to organize and assign tasks to each member. For copyright, some of our options for open source licensing include the MIT license, the X11 license, the Apache license version 2.0, and the GNU GLP version 3. For our project, we believe that choosing a proprietary license which does not allow reuse or redistribution is the most appropriate because the source code would likely not be open source. In terms of ownership of the copyrights after graduation, ownership will either be passed on to the University of Waterloo or someone who works for the university. Privacy is very important for this application, and so we will take care to ensure that any data collected and stored about the users follows the guidelines set out. PIPEDA applies to organizations using the data for commercial purpose, and Ontario does not seem to have its own legislation. Our goal would be to keep all data collected by users completely confidential without commercializing it, which should also comply with provincial data privacy legislation across Canada. Firebase authentication uses an internally modified version of Scrypt to hash account passwords, so we do not store the user's email in our database. Users are able to delete their data if they've chosen to delete their account. Now I will talk about some challenges we faced during this project and what we've learned from it. One of the main challenges we faced was how the group was formed and the members joining at different times and stages of planning and development, as well as taking over the codebase that had previously been worked on by the co-op students. Joining the group late, especially for John, I think, it was more time-consuming to catch up on the ideas and plans that were already in place. One thing that really helped was that while taking SE 463 software requirements and specifications, we had to plan out our idea very thoroughly and create a software requirement specification, which proved to be a very beneficial document for John, and for us, looking back on our planning. Since the codebase was worked on by other people prior to us getting into development, there was the inherent challenges that come with using other people's code. Also, while the work that was done by the co-op students was good and it gave us a head start, it was apparent to us with the knowledge and experience we've gained throughout our degree that these were first-year students and we ended up having to do a lot of refactoring to move forward. Another challenge that came with this project was user acquisition. As we said before, a lot of the development and testing were done this term while we were trying to get the app ready for release. Since we used Expo, we were able to publish the app by having users download the Expo app and providing them with the URL to our project. We struggled with getting users for a couple of reasons, but mainly because our app wasn't ready for publication until later in the semester. Though we haven't officially published our app, we have gotten our friends and some classmates to try out the app and give us feedback. In all, we have about 20 users who have created profiles and used the app, and the feedback we got was mainly UI-based, because there were some screens, like the home screen, that were a bit confusing to some, and others said that the UI looked a little bit bland. These are both things that we can work on moving forward. The main takeaway we have from this experience is to always start early in planning, development, and other things, because it always takes more time to complete a project than you think. Had we started our development earlier, we could have taken advantage of more opportunities for a wide audience to use our app. Also, the planning that was done in SE 463 was really helpful, and it saved us a lot of time and confusion in the end, so planning is always very, very important. This has been the presentation for our fourth-year design project, WaterlooWave. I hope you enjoyed it.